Is Donald Trump preparing to obliterate Iran's water and electricity systems in a bid to arm-twist Mojtaba Khamenei into submission amid rising tensions? Is thirst now being turned into a weapon, as the United States signals possible strikes on Iran's critical desalination infrastructure? Could this strategy end up putting U.S. assets across the Middle East at greater risk, as Washington escalates with a deeply provocative threat? Iran has issued a stark warning, vowing that painful attacks will continue until its adversaries, in its words, see pain in their eyes. And in response, is Donald Trump now signaling a shift, framing his next move as a push for peace even as tensions continue to spiral? US President Donald Trump's tirade against Iran continued, even as Tehran resisted his proposed 15-point peace framework. The Trump administration is now reportedly shifting focus toward Iran's civilian infrastructure as part of its broader pressure strategy. On March 30th, President Trump publicly vowed a strong and decisive response to Iran's retaliatory strikes across the region. He also claimed that the United States would respond to Iranian strikes targeting Israel's Haifa and Kuwait, according to the New York Post. When pressed for specifics on the planned response, the US president offered only a brief remark, saying, "You'll see shortly." Trump further warned Iran to reach an agreement quickly, cautioning that the window for diplomacy may soon close entirely. He also reportedly placed Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf on notice amid rising tensions. The US president indicated he would allow roughly a week to assess whether Ghalibaf is willing to cooperate in negotiations. On March 31st, Trump's defense chief also issued a warning to Tehran, urging it to move toward a deal with Washington without delay.
I can tell you, having been with Steve and Jared and the vice president and Marco and many others yesterday, they are very real. They are ongoing. They're active and I think gaining strength. And we appreciate that. As I said in my remarks, we would much prefer to get a deal. If Iran was willing to relinquish material they have and ambitions they have, open this, great. That's the goal. We don't want to have to do more militarily than we have to. But I didn't mean it flippantly when I said, in the meantime, we'll negotiate with bombs. Our job is to ensure that we compel Iran to realize that this new regime, this regime in charge, is in a better place if they make that deal. And so we'll continue. We're working hand in hand, but the primary effort is a deal. We want that deal to be accomplished if at all possible. If not, then we're prepared to continue.
Trump's latest remarks to the New York Post came alongside renewed threats targeting Iran's critical civilian infrastructure. On March 30th, the US president took to Truth Social, signaling pressure on Iran to return to the negotiating table. He further warned that failure to secure a deal could lead to direct attacks on Iran's energy infrastructure. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "The United States of America is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells and Karg Island, and possibly all desalination plants, which we have purposefully not yet touched. This will be in retribution for our many soldiers, and others, that Iran has butchered and killed over the old regime's 47-year reign of terror." End quote. If the United States were to strike Iran's desalination facilities, it could severely disrupt water access for millions of civilians. Experts speaking to Al Jazeera warned that targeting civilian infrastructure in such a manner could constitute a war crime. Under international law, deliberate attacks on civilian sites during conflict are explicitly prohibited and widely condemned. Earlier, Trump had threatened similar action against Iran's energy sector, but paused those plans amid ceasefire efforts. Despite that pause, both the United States and Israel continued strikes on Iranian industrial targets, prompting retaliatory responses. Iran issued a sinister new threat just hours after its missile strike on a chemical factory in southern Israel, making clear that the attack was only a first warning shot. A senior Iranian commander said that retaliatory operations against the United States and Israel are already underway and are now intensifying with every new round of aggression. The commander of the IRGC's aerospace force made these remarks in an official statement released on March 29th, outlining Tehran's evolving response strategy. Brigadier General Majid Musavi said Iran's reply to what he called the enemy's attacks is being delivered through precise strikes on carefully chosen economic and military targets. An Israeli chemical factory in the Neot Hovav industrial zone was struck by an Iranian missile on March 29, in one of the clearest examples of Iran's shift to industrial targets. A huge fire broke out across the complex, which houses several chemical manufacturing facilities and other industrial plants clustered in the Negev. At least 34 firefighting crews were deployed to contain the blaze, and officials later said that no hazardous material leaks were detected at the scene. The damaged plant belongs to Adama, a chemicals company that is part of the Chinese-owned Syngenta Group, and it sits around 12 kilometers from the city of Beersheba. In Beersheba itself, at least 11 people were injured after an Iranian missile struck an open area near the city during the same wave of attacks. Local reports said those people were hurt by flying objects and debris thrown into the air by the missile shockwave rather than by a direct hit. Emergency service Megan David Adam also treated around 20 others suffering from acute anxiety, and they were all taken to Soroka Hospital for further care. In Kuwait, Iranian forces struck a power and water distillation facility linked to US interests, killing one worker in a related attack on Gulf-based infrastructure. Iranian officials say this wave of retaliation followed earlier IDF strikes on the Arak heavy water reactor and on a uranium-related site in the province of Yazd. The global atomic watchdog has confirmed that Iran's Khandab water plant sustained severe damage during those Israeli attacks. The agency added that Khandab contained no declared nuclear material at the time of the strike and that the facility is now no longer operational. At the same time, Iranian state media reported a separate American-Israel attack on a unit of the Tabriz petrochemical company in northwest Iran. Officials there said no toxic or polluting substances were released after the strike, and rescue teams quickly brought the situation under control. Earlier in the conflict, Israel had publicly boasted that it hit facilities linked to Iran's nuclear program and heavy industry, claiming major damage to production capacity.
For the second time in this war, Israel's largest oil refinery came under Iranian fire again. On March 30th, a major fire broke out at the Bazan oil refinery in Haifa in northern Israel. The Haifa refinery is one of Israel's 2 operating oil refineries and its largest petrochemical complex. Reports said debris from an intercepted missile struck an industrial building and a fuel tank at the site. Israel Fire Service said a missile directly hit a tanker parked at the Bazan refinery compound.
The United States reportedly used 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs in its latest bombing campaign inside Iran, according to fresh reporting on the March 31st strike wave. Explosions rocked an Iranian army ammunition depot near Mount Safa in Isfahan on March 31st, adding another major flashpoint to the widening conflict. Multiple blasts were heard at what was described as one of Iran's largest munition storage sites, pointing to a strike of significant scale and intensity. Isfahan was already one of the nuclear-related sites bombed by the United States during the 12-day war in June 2025, making it a familiar target in earlier US operations. Smoke and fire were seen rising from the area as emergency teams rushed to respond to the blasts, according to reporting cited from Iran International. The explosions came after the United States reportedly used a high volume of penetrator munitions in the strike, suggesting a deliberate attempt to hit hardened military infrastructure. The Iranian depot was hit with 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs, according to reporting that cited the Wall Street Journal and a US official familiar with the strike details. These US strikes come even as reports continue to point to peace talks with Iran aimed at halting the broader war in the Middle East. Donald Trump had proposed a 15-point peace plan after postponing strikes on Iran's energy sites, trying to pair military pressure with a diplomatic offer. Iran appeared to reject that peace plan, calling it excessive, unrealistic, and illogical in a sign that Tehran was not ready to accept Washington's terms. Tehran also seemed openly defiant amid reports that the United States could still be considering a possible ground operation on Iranian soil despite the parallel peace track.